Welcome in, friend, to the Her Unlock podcast. I'm excited to continue the money mindset series by unpacking my own personal journey a little bit more. And here's what I will tell you is I find that anytime I go to share on a topic, to teach on a topic, more comes up for me. And that is exactly what happened when I declared doing a money mindset series on the podcast and also on my social media feed. And what I have uncovered is I have a lot more work to do around money to truly step into financial freedom, to ultimately unlock the impact and income that I know God has waiting for me. Because what I know to be true is that He will not give me more than I can handle. And right now, I have not been handling my money well. And I will share a bit more about that. And that's kind of been the pattern for me in my personal finances and in my business finances. And I want to share vulnerably about this journey because it's one of the topics that I feel like people don't talk enough about and that a lot of people struggle with. And a lot of guilt and shame can come up. I know that I've felt it when talking about money and how we handle money, the money in our bank account, how much we're making, how much we're spending, what we're talking about, what we're not talking about. And so I want to go first and I want to open the conversation up. And I've shared a bit about my point of view over the last two episodes. And now not only am I sharing my point of view, I'm sharing from my own personal journey. And what I will tell you is it has been a journey. I dropped a podcast episode, I think it was earlier this year, focusing on financial well-being. And I shared how my husband and I got out of $37,000 worth of debt. What we found is as we had baby number 2, we didn't adjust our lifestyles. I also stepped into entrepreneurship. So there was a bit more investments going into that, investments into 2 kids in daycare. And we didn't change how we were living. And we weren't talking about our finances. And we were behaving in ways that weren't stewarding our money well. And what I uncovered on that journey when we had this moment of like, oh my gosh, we aren't able to pay off our credit card every month. And then it just kept stacking up and I took out a loan for my business. And so all these different things outside of, we had our mortgage still. We had some intentional places where we were in debt. And yet the $37,000 that we were in debt on was not intentional. And it just kept stacking up. And so when we got to that moment of things need to change, I had started to learn a bit about money mindset and money stories and money beliefs and how they drive our behaviors. I was not yet familiar with the subconscious mind work. This was pre me discovering that world. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I'm doing things differently now that I am aware that there is a deeper level that is really important to tap into to truly have behavioral change around this. Because what I realized is I was able to muscle through and make some pretty significant changes that allowed us to get out of debt because I was aware and I did some work on my money beliefs. What I am finding is I'm back in those default behaviors that are not serving me well or my family well. And I had to get really honest with myself about that. And so what I will share with you is that my limiting belief around money that was driving and has been driving my behavior is that I'm not good with money. Money in, money out. And guess what? With that limiting belief, my behaviors align to that. And I would avoid looking at our bank account, my business bank account. I'd avoid talking about it. I avoided reconciling my expenses with the money coming in. I avoided the conversations. I might have already mentioned that already, but that's a big one. I'm going to talk about what I'm doing around that. And I was overspending because I was avoiding. And it was creating feelings of frustration, overwhelm, shame, guilt, this internal spiral. And guess what? All of that ensured that I wasn't going to be bringing the money in that was essential for my business and for my family, because I wasn't stewarding the current money coming in well. And so the new belief that I am working to instill at a deeper level, and I'll talk about how I'm going to do that, is I steward my money well. And I'm grateful for the money I have. Because if those two things aren't happening, there is no reason and no way that God is going to give me more. And so it is really important for me to instill those beliefs so that my behaviors are different. My behaviors are ones that are more empowering, where I'm not avoiding, I'm actually looking at my money and I'm excited about it. Last week, if you haven't listened to that episode with my dear friend Kristen, she talked a lot about being intimate with your money, yourself, and with God. And I cannot unlearn that. And that is something that I am going to be implementing moving forward. And so I just really encourage you, if you are in a spot like I have been, because I would say, like, I knew, if I take a step back, when we were in debt, I uncovered that belief, that limiting belief that I just shared, that I believed I wasn't good with money in, money out. I knew that. I created a new belief. It sounded a little bit different than the one I just shared with you. It was something along the lines of, I'm responsible with money. I'm good with money. I handle money well. So somewhat similar. So I was aware, and I did the work to create a more empowered belief. And then somehow, after a while, because my behaviors did shift, we were able to get out of debt. I was doing things differently. And then we went through another season where I left my corporate job. So our income looked different. I wasn't quite making in my business the consistent amount that I was making in my corporate job. We didn't adjust. We didn't talk about it. Well, we briefly talked about it. And what I found is it was like in one ear, out the other. And I started operating from that old belief again. And here's the reason why. It's because I have not done the deeper subconscious work to actually imprint that belief and actually believe it. At the time, I was kind of like, and I talk about this a little bit, kind of like forcing myself into that belief. Okay, you will believe this, say it 5 times. And then I would behave in alignment to that belief for the short term. And yes, that is helpful, and it got us far. That mixed with some strategies and methods that worked for our family, because that's the thing. Until you do this inner work, until you unpack the limiting belief, until you rewrite a more empowering one, until you understand what financial freedom looks like for you and your family, you won't be able, it will be harder to find a strategy and method that works for you, because honestly, any strategy or method or tactic around money can work for you. There's a million different things you can do. My friend Christian shared an approach last week that could be incredible for you. And yet, if you don't do the inner work to understand what your beliefs are and why you've been behaving the way you've been behaving, You're just stacking a strategy or a method on a broken belief system around money. And that's basically what I was doing. And it can, again, work for the short term. And yet I know that you want what I crave, which is true financial freedom, where you're not stuck in this cycle of coming back to this same place. It's a different point in time, potentially a different circumstance, but feels pretty darn similar. And that's where I'm at. I have cycled back. I was just talking, my husband and I had, we've implemented these Sunday morning coffee dates, which, if I'm being honest, had fallen off for a little bit. And we're bringing them back because they're so helpful for us in this season where it feels like we are ships passing in the night. And so we are being intentional. And that's one of the steps I was going to share of like, well, what am I doing differently? And we're going to be talking about money every Sunday morning as a part of those conversations. What I was sharing with him is like, man, like I have defaulted back in to those old patterns that did not serve me well, did not serve our family well. And I want to do things differently moving forward. And for me, it's really doing the subconscious work around this belief. And it's doing a couple of other things alongside of it too. Because it's not, once you start to do the subconscious work, then it's about taking action from that place. And so for me, what I'm doing differently this time around is actually doing the subconscious reprogramming work with my own coach. Because here's the thing, I am an embodiment of this work. And I have my own coach and my own practitioner who I am certified through that I have invested in for support. Investment I could make in my business for myself, for my clients, is having her in my world. And I'm going to be working with her on this to truly shift my beliefs around money so I can open myself up to the income goals that I have that I know are incredibly supportive for my business and for my family. All tied back to I steward my money well and I'm grateful for what I have because I know God has called me to act in that way, to have that belief. That's the belief he wants. The enemy has planted that other belief that I've been operating from, that I am not good with money, money in, money out. That's from the enemy. So I'll be working with her on subconscious reprogramming. I will be working with God as well, as I was just talking about that. And there are 2 verses. I shared a verse in 2 episodes ago that I love. And then there were 2 other verses that have really stood out to me as I think about stewarding my money well. And I want to share them with you just in case they're helpful for you too, because it is not just about me doing the work. It's about going to God with this and releasing the hold that this belief has on me to him alongside the subconscious reprogramming work and alongside some other things I'm going to share. So the 2 verses that really ground me in stewarding my money well and being grateful for what I have is the first is Hebrews 13:5. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. That's the grateful piece. If I am not grateful for what I already have, God will not give me more. It is so important to be grateful and celebrate every penny. I learned this from an incredible coach and a mastermind I had, and I'm going to be bringing it back is Money Miracles, I think is what she called it, and keeping a list of all the money coming in and celebrating the penny that comes in just as much as the $1 million that may come in. And just that act in and of itself can shift, 1, how you feel towards money, and 2, noticing money that's coming in, because money is available to you anytime you want. It's just most of us are not open to it, aren't open to the opportunities, are acting out of lack, scarcity mindset. I know that's been me. Not enough, not enough. Put myself in that position of not enough, not enough. So it's really incredibly important, and a truth from God is to be content with what you have. Contentment is so powerful. And I know some people can think contentment equals complacency, and that is not the case. The goal is to be so content and yet working towards the more that God has for you. You can be content, you can be grateful, and you can be working towards that more. Though that duality can coexist. And then the other verse that I am going to be leaning into is Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. And so that's about stewarding your money while being diligent with what you have, which I have not been. In full transparency, if you haven't picked up on that yet. And so it's really about making daily decisions to steward my money well. That's what God wants for me. That's what God wants for us. He's the money that we have is from him. It's a gift from him. What we've done to receive that money is a gift from him. And remembering that just shifts. Like even just thinking about that and reading those verses out loud, I feel a shift of just like, gosh, how cool is that? And he will always provide. He will provide just enough for what you need. And so trust that. I know that's something I'm working on, is trusting that he will provide as long as I am stewarding my money well and I am being grateful for what I have. Because again, if those two things aren't happening, I know, and I've been personally experiencing it, is he won't provide in the ways that we desire him to, because he's like, like, I've given you so much and look what you've done. You've not been diligent. You've spent hastily. And so it's time to shift that. And that is what I'm working on. And so I want to share a little bit more about the things I'm doing to behave in alignment to this. And so I talked about, digging into the Bible, spending time with God, coming back to those verses and his truths and what he wants for me, and talking to him about it daily. Because it's a daily decision to steward my money well and to be grateful for the money I do have, to be grateful for what I have. And so a daily conversation with him, being vulnerable, being honest, releasing the fear that I've had around money, the fear about being honest and vulnerable around it, talking about it. And then second, I talked about this already, is the subconscious work with my own coach to truly reprogram the money beliefs that I've had and that I've been operating from, because they run deep. And there is most likely some deeper beliefs underneath it. I know something I've been uncovering lately is this belief that I can't make as much as I made in my corporate job in my business. And I know that also has me behaving in this way. And so that's something we'll be working on as well. Again, to open me up to the impact and income I know I'm destined for, I know God wants for me. And so I've got to step into this work and silence those beliefs that are holding me back, reprogram them so that the enemy has less of a grip over me and a grip over the money that God's given me, because that is who has the grip. And then I'm going to, one of the things that, well, I'm going to share two things, and then I'm going to share a question that I'll be asking myself on the regular, because I also want to leave you with some things to think about too. And so two other things I'm going to be doing, because I told you that avoidance is the behavior that follows that limiting belief that I'm not good with money in, money out. And in order to act in alignment to I steward my money well, and I'm grateful for the money that I have, I am going to be having weekly money dates with myself to reconcile my expenses, the money coming in, looking forward, doing all the things that a CEO of a company is that's necessary for them to do so that this is a business, not just a hobby. So I will be implementing those things. And it's something that I actually did for a little bit. And again, because I hadn't worked on this deeper limiting belief and really shifted it, it was short term that I was behaving in that way. And so now I'm like, nope. I want financial freedom. I don't want to come back to this place. So we're going to change things now. And so I'm going to implement a weekly money date with myself. I talked about this too. My husband and I will be talking about our money and my business money on a weekly basis during our Sunday morning coffee date. So just creating an opening to be honest and upfront about, hey, like, how are our finances looking this week? What is important for us to do differently? What feels challenging? What do we have fears around? How's my business doing? How's my business going to support our family while supporting our business, and just having that open lines of communication? Because a lot of times when you do not have that open lines of communication, you end up in this place where you are feeling, again, that guilt, that shame, that frustration, that overwhelm, which then sends you down a spiral. Because anytime those feelings are present, we start to behave in ways that aren't in alignment to how we want to behave around money. And so we'll be doing that. Another thing I'll be doing, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, is celebrating every cent that's coming in, both what my husband's bringing in and what I'm bringing in. And so that's something we'll be doing as we talk about money every Sunday. And I'll also be doing as I have my own money dates with myself, because I want to be grateful for every cent that comes in. And I want to be aware. A lot of times we're like, that reoccurring stuff that's coming in, especially in corporate America, it can be so easy of getting, like, I get paid every 2 weeks and it's just there. And you can kind of take it for granted. And I feel like I'm learning, like, now that I'm not in corporate America, I'm like, man, I took that for granted. And I want to look at my money differently, especially as an entrepreneur. And also just like my husband's consistent income that comes in from his corporate job. So that's something I'll be implementing. And then lastly, when I work with myself and I work with clients on shifting limiting beliefs, I have them identify like the number one limiting belief. So that's something I'd encourage you to do. What's your number one limiting belief around money? If you are craving financial freedom and you're feeling a lot of the ways that I'm describing that I've been feeling, there is a limiting belief there. It will potentially, most likely, sound different than mine. And really unpacking your money stories, your money mindset. Sometimes it's easier just to dump it all out on even how you were raised around money, or how your significant other was raised around money, because sometimes that comes into play for you too. So I encourage you to identify that limiting belief. And then I want you to identify where that limiting belief came from. And then I want you to identify that more empowering belief you want to have. In my case, I had shared the more empowering belief is I steward my money well. I am grateful for what I have, the money I have. So what's that new, more empowering belief you want to operate from? And then the last thing, and this is what I'm asking myself daily, anytime I'm in a situation where money is involved, is what action is important for me to take that is in alignment to this new, more empowering belief. So in my case, it's what action will demonstrate that I'm stewarding my money well. What action will demonstrate that I am grateful for the money I have? And that's a question that most likely will come up multiple times a day, right? And so I just leave you with those things to think about. And then if you really want to step into financial freedom and ensure that these beliefs get imprinted and that you are operating from these beliefs long term, then I encourage you to do the subconscious work. And that is something I can partner with you on. And what I will tell you is if you're local to the Twin Cities, I have an incredible workshop happening on October 23rd. You can grab your spot in the show notes. It's called Shatter Your Money Ceiling. And we'll be tapping into a technique that will help you release those money blocks and tap into that financial freedom that you crave. So highly recommend that. And if you're not local, or even if you are local and you want a more personalized experience around this, I've got a couple of one-on-one options for you to tap into that will also be in the show notes. That will not only help you move through your money blocks and unlock that financial freedom you crave, it will also shift you in ways that you didn't even realize were essential to step into that life, that career, that business that you crave. Because a lot of times our money beliefs can be the thing holding us back from stepping into that. And so I invite you in, friend, to do that deeper work. I'm going to be doing it with my own practitioner, and the power lies within your subconscious mind. And most of us, it requires us tapping into those techniques to make that true sustainable change happen. I'm excited to take you along on this journey as I rewire my money beliefs so I can step into the financial freedom I crave and my family craves. I heart you, friend.